All right, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. This has obviously been a team that's been in the news a lot this offseason when it comes to a quarterback position, one particular quarterback in general. But there's been an update on this situation about the Steelers taking a really smart approach, a smart move by Khan and the entire Pittsburgh leadership. We'll get into that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers going on for, I think, weeks now, maybe in months, have been linked to Aaron Rodgers, of course. A lot of people are getting frustrated. What's going on? What's taking so long? But I think the Steelers are making a really smart approach with how they're handling it. And a new report has come out talking about exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing in terms of their front office. And I think it's a great move. Let's go into the report, and then we'll break down the numbers on the other side. This is courtesy of Athlon Sports. NFL insider Diana Rossini of The Athletic has revealed a major update about the situation, talking about the Rodgers Steelers situation. She also shared why she believes Rodgers is holding out. Usually it's money, she said. Financials are always part of it. He does not need to sign and take some cheap deal. He knows the Steelers need him. Allegedly, I don't know if I agree with Rossini on that one. Do I think he was going to be willing to take less to play for a team that he thinks is a Super Bowl caliber team like the Minnesota Vikings? Absolutely, but I think this situation is different. There's going to be a number here that's going to make Aaron happy, and here's the most important sentence, and I just don't know if Pittsburgh is there yet. All right, reading between the lines, it's clear Aaron Rodgers wants X, and Pittsburgh Steelers have been like, you're worth about 60% of X, right? We're not going to give you X. And I think that's the right move by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the numbers to indicate it. So let's go ahead and go into our first chart here. Both these charts are courtesy of overthecap.com. These are basically screenshots. So this first one just lists the top quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of their average per year cap hit. And just going down from top to bottom, I'll read off some of the names: Prescott, Lawrence, Love, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Tua, Jared Goff, Herbert, Jackson, Hurts, Murray, Deshaun Watson, and wrap up with Patrick Mahomes. Now, there's one thing you'll notice if you look at the guys at the top of the list. Dallas Cowboys, kind of disappointing every year. Trevor Lawrence, Jaguars, very underperforming. Packers, Jordan Love, it's okay. Josh Allen, Bills, consistently disappointing in the postseason. Burrow has been good with the Bengals, but they had that really just one or two runs, right? Tua, disappointing postseason. Jared Goff, disappointing postseason, if we're being honest. Justin Herbert, disappointing postseason. And then when you get to the bottom half, you go Lamar Jackson, MVP guy. He's made a couple deep playoff runs. Jalen Hurts has 2 Super Bowl titles. Kyler Murray's had injuries. Deshaun Watson's a debacle. And Patrick Mahomes is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So when you break out these numbers here, it's very clear that there's no real value to spending more money at the quarterback position. There just isn't, right? You can look at these numbers and say, would I rather be Dallas spending $60 million per year at quarterback, or would I rather be Philly spending 51, or Kansas City spending 45, or the Ravens spending 52, right? I think we can all agree you'd rather be one of those other 3 teams in terms of where you are in terms of your situation. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence getting $55 million a year compared to those other 3 teams. So you don't want to necessarily throw a lot of dollars at the quarterback position. More dollars doesn't mean more wins. And that's exactly what the Steelers are understanding here with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers wants X, and Pittsburgh's like, listen, man, we throw more money at you. We're not going to be the New York Jets, because more money doesn't mean more wins. We just saw that the last 2 years in New York. And that kind of goes into our second graph here. And this is highlighting, I want to focus on the far right column. The far right column is the dead cap dollars. And the Pittsburgh Steelers right here have the third fewest dead cap dollars in the National Football League. What is dead cap dollars? It's dollars that are counting against your salary cap of players that are no longer on your team. Usually how this works is, let's say you sign a player to a 4-year, $100 million deal, and let's say it's fully guaranteed, and after 2 years you cut them. So that means you have 2 years, let's say it's on at $50 million left. That's dead cap that's counting against you, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers have done a pretty good job in terms of managing their dead cap situation. As you can see, they've got the third fewest in the NFL. The New York Jets took a $35 million dead cap hit when they moved off of Aaron Rodgers. The Packers took a significant dead cap hit as well. So what the Steelers are undeniably doing here is they're saying, listen, we'll give you a 1-year deal, maybe 2-year deal. There won't be a lot of guaranteed dollars. The salary won't be crazy. You're going to come here and we'll see what happens, because you had a disappointing season with the Jets last year and you missed pretty much all of 2023. And honestly, your last year with the Packers was your worst year with Green Bay. So if we're looking at the past 3 years, not a lot of great stuff there. Now, Rodgers is pushing back on that, but I think the Steelers have done a great job holding firm. There's a lot of people that are really impatient saying, when is Pittsburgh going to make this move? At this point, I don't know if they do, right? And I think if you're Pittsburgh, wait it out. Draft Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round if you want, right? Invest in maybe a Kirk Cousins trade if the Falcons want to give him away for like a 6th-round pick, right? Can you imagine a quarterback room with Rudolph, Milroe to develop, and maybe throwing a Kirk Cousins that cost you a 6th-round pick? You don't need Aaron Rodgers, right? You can develop Milroe, get him ready. I'm just using Jalen Milroe as an example. Throw whatever young quarterback you want into that mix and have Rudolph and Cousins duke it out to see who's going to be the starter, right? There's nothing wrong with that approach. I think that's what the Steelers are basically saying here. It says, listen, we'd like you, Aaron Rodgers, but only if the numbers make sense. And that is the right approach to make. With the biggest mistake the Jets made with Rodgers, they said, okay, we have all these problems with our team, all this problem with our coaching staff, all this problem with our front office, all this problem with our organization. If we bring in a quarterback, it'll fix all the bad. And that's just not how it works. The Steelers have a good team, but they obviously have some flaws. If they mortgage everything for Aaron Rodgers and take massive dead cap hits and overpay, it won't help them with the other flaws. It'll help solve the quarterback problem conceivably, assuming Rodgers will be healthy. But the reality is, at this point, an elderly Aaron Rodgers isn't worth the dollars. He just isn't. And the Steelers indicating that they're not going to pay him that money is actually a really good sign for the future of the Pittsburgh franchise. It shows to me that Omar Khan is using a really, really smart approach. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this, but Steelers fans, you first in the comment section below. At this point, there's a lot of variability with the quarterback room. The one thing we do know is Mason Rudolph, right? But I'll ask you this question. Give me your ideal quarterback room for the Pittsburgh Steelers fast forwarding to 2025. We're getting ready for the regular season, week 1. Who do you want to be in the 3-man QB room? Is it Rudolph, Rodgers, Milroe? Is it Rudolph, Cousins, Jackson Dart? Whatever. Give us your combination of what you want the ideal 3-man quarterback room to be going into the 2025 regular season. Put it in the comment section below. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on this latest move by Pittsburgh?
Yeah, and I think this is for Pittsburgh. It's the smart thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Is you gotta temper. It's easy to want to be like, we need a quarterback. Let's go spend whatever we need to go get somebody in this room. We have Mason Rudolph. People say, oh, let's stick with him. That's not the guy. That's not who you. That's not. If you need to use him for now, you have to have a backup plan. So if your plan is Mason Rudolph, you definitely need to go get a quarterback in the draft. But I'd also suggest going out and getting somebody in free agency as well. So I think getting a quarterback is important, but I like that Pittsburgh is being restrained. They're not falling to temptation. They're saying, hey, we need a quarterback, but we aren't going to go break the bank, because I think we're starting to see this around the league a little bit. And it isn't necessarily just the quarterback position, but people have been overpaying top players for a long time. And I think we're starting to see the creep of what that can do to your team when you look around the league. Now, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs are still very good. They went to the Super Bowl, no doubt. I think any team in the league would be happy with being the Kansas City Chiefs right now. But you're starting to see the big contracts, the big dollars that they have signed some of these players to creep in the performance. It's just their inability to get other players at other key positions. Don't have a top tier wide receiver right now. They've been working, it just, I feel they've a lot of constraint on them as far as players that they have to pay a ton of money, and it's starting to hurt their performance. They're slow starting in the regular season. They end up getting there. They get to the Super Bowl. That's undeniable. But I think over the next couple of years, we're going to start to see it. You see the San Francisco 49ers, they've paid a ton of players around their, team. Christian McCaffrey obviously has gotten big time deals. They got all the receivers that they need to pay a ton of money to. But this is a team that is just slowly, we're seeing the injuries. We're starting to see, do they want to pay Brock Purdy all this money? It's starting to really get invested in how their salary cap plan is going to work out. And all these bloated contracts definitely aren't helping. And I think we're starting to see this happen with these teams that did this stuff. So for the Steelers to be like, let's not go blow all of our money. Let's manage our dead cap. Let's make sure that we have every resource available to us possible. I think they're trying to avoid something like that. They're trying to build a team, but they don't want to rush and go overpay for someone that they don't need. The best example of that is the Cleveland Browns in their own division, the whole Deshaun Watson situation. They went out, and this is the same thing as Deshaun Watson. They go overpay him, and the team was already bad to begin with, but they've crippled it even more for the foreseeable future. I don't think no one will ever see the Cleveland Browns be relevant again. It might be 5, might be 10 years from now if they can get some new management in there and turn the ship going in the right direction. So I think that's good. I think the only times, and this is back to the Kansas City Chiefs, back to the Baltimore Ravens, another team Steelers fans are familiar with, the only time you do overpay, especially the quarterback position, is if that player can win you the game on their own. Guys like Lamar Jackson brings a lot to the table. He can really help the Ravens win the game on his own sometimes if he needs to. Patrick Mahomes, can make things happen. He can win you the game on his own if he needs to. Aaron Rodgers ain't that guy anymore. He's not going to win you any games on his own anymore. I don't even think he's worthy of being overpaid right now. You offer him the budget deal, and if that's the case, that's the case. So I think good move by the Pittsburgh Steelers, smart business move right here. They're showing this is a team that isn't just going to go jump on anything. So I think good sign for the Steelers cap going forward. They're not willing to risk it all just for a maybe at the quarterback position.
Well, it's also important to understand that the Steelers this offseason and going back a couple off seasons, their overall strategy seems to have been sort of QB proofing this offense, right? The investments they've made in the offensive line. Of course, we know tackle, center, guard just last draft alone. We know, of course, Pickens, he's got the talent. They added DK Metcalf, of course, this season, this offseason, extended him to a big deal, right? This has been a strategy, a very clear and obvious strategy by the Steelers to create an offensive infrastructure. I thought personally, and I think this is still true, is for to find a future young quarterback and develop him and grow with some of these guys. But regardless, it's QB proof whoever is behind center. And this was one of the comments that was made last season during the Fields Russell Wilson debate. Like, well, which quarterback is actually better for the Steelers? Because Fields won some games, Wilson's did some good things too, but he had some bad performances. Fields has his flaws, right? Who is actually better for Pittsburgh? And I think the point is why it was so unclear is because the infrastructure around Pittsburgh was getting better and better around the quarterback, where you really can't tell the difference between quarterback performance unless they're astronomically better, like you alluded to, right? Unless it's a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson, or something like that, there really is no need to even come close to overpaying. In fact, I would argue they shouldn't even pay market value for a quarterback like a Rodgers or anything like that. They should only pay like market value for an elite guy. Everything else should be a discount because their entire strategy has been to just create an infrastructure where you don't really need the quarterback, where just the offensive line, McCormick, Frazier, right? You look at receivers, of course, with Pickens, DK Metcalf, right? You've got a good mix of veterans. You got Siamalu at guard, for example, right? Maybe we finally see Broderick Jones become a little bit better. I think we saw some good things for him last year as well. I think we go forward and say this is a talented group on the offensive side. Calvin Austin's taking some stretches, taking some good steps forward. Pat Freiermuth is a solid, steady tight end. You can go down the list here across the board. Good mix of young guys and veterans where this is a good offense for any quarterback to slide into. You don't need to go out and overpay, and you shouldn't, right? Your whole strategy was that you don't have to do that. We saw it last offseason with the Fields and Russell Wilson deals. There's no reason to suddenly abandon that strategy now. In fact, it would be stupid to. So credit to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I guess, for not doing the incredibly stupid thing and throwing Rodgers a bunch of money just to make him really happy. Aaron Rodgers, whatever you want to say about him, he's not an idiot. I think he actually understands his value. I think he feels he has more cards here and has more negotiating leverage. I think that's the one mistake him and his agent are making here. I think if Pittsburgh sticks to their guns, especially if they draft a quarterback in the upcoming NFL draft and maybe consider adding a Kirk Cousins type to maybe be an extra backup, maybe not, right? Rudolph's been there before. Rudolph and a rookie, I mean, that may be enough to just kind of get you through this offseason to see, or this season to see if the rookie's even worth anything as you look forward towards the future. I think the Steelers are taking a right approach here. Don't mortgage everything you built over the past couple seasons just to make Aaron Rodgers happy. The New York Jets did it. It was a debacle. I think there's a generally good rule of thumb in terms of the NFL over the past decade or so. If the Jets do something, don't follow that model. If the Browns do something, don't follow that model. There's a lot of ways to win. We've seen it over the past past decade or so. Offense, defense, special teams, AFC, NFC, old coach, young coach, offensive minded, defensive minded. A lot of ways to get it done. Just don't do what the Jets do and don't do what the Browns do. Avoid those two things at all costs, and generally you'll be successful. It looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers are avoiding that mistake, which is a great sign for them.